It's very, very difficult, but I think it has to start, A, as you said, with self-belief, and B, with noticing our own internalized ageism. Because as I said, when I talked about the dried up old prune, we take on all of these messages. We don't think we can age. We try and hide it.
Oh, totally.
We feel insecure. We lack confidence. Imposter syndrome kicks in around menopause. It's the highest for women in menopause, and I don't see any surprise in that. So we have to catch our own internalized ageism. So if you ever think, oh, I'm too old to do this, or I'm too old to do that, and I can't wear that, and I can't wear this, rubbish.
Well, hi, everybody. This is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Jeans, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old, all about supporting the over 50 female community internationally today, because we have Rachel Lankester from UK, and we're going to talk everything menopause and beyond. Rachel is the author of Magnificent Midlife, and I want to get right into it, Rachel. So, how did you become so focused on menopause, which is honestly the dreaded, insurmountable wall of a woman's life and journey through life? Let's talk menopause. Let's talk mental clarity. And then we're going to get into the best of it and talk about what a whale is. Okay, go, Rachel.
Diane, it's so lovely to be here, and I'm so grateful. Thank you very, very much for having me on. And I am excited to talk about menopause, which is taboo and really shouldn't be taboo, because it's something that happens to 50% of the population. And all it really is puberty in reverse. And we don't feel shame about puberty. We don't talk about puberty as being a hormone deficiency, or before we were in puberty as being a hormone deficiency. And yet we have all of these weird negative narratives about menopause. And my passion is turning all of that on its head. It really is, because I didn't have an easy experience of menopause. I was given an early menopause diagnosis at the age of 41, and I was devastated. I actually went for a fertility test because I was trying for another child. So that put paid to my dreams of having another child. But for a time, I just immediately went into that, I'm a dried up old prune. My viewing of myself just changed overnight. I allowed that word menopause to change everything I thought about myself.
Yeah.
And then gradually I rode back. It took me a long time, but I gradually rode back, and I learned all sorts of things. I learned that probably the diagnosis was wrong. I was in perimenopause, not through menopause, but the hormone test was also wrong, and the doctor didn't know anything. So I actually, for a time, I got my bleeds back, which was very confusing. But I learned that we have so much more control over our menopause experience. We're not victims of it. It's not something that happens to us. I actually now believe it's something that happens for us. I have all sorts of radical ideas about menopause, and I see it now as a gift that men don't have. So yeah, I'm very passionate about getting these kind of messages across to women.
It's interesting because Eastern philosophy agrees with you and says that menopause is a really natural part of life. I was going to say supernatural, but not in that text. And that it's something to be welcomed. And many philosophers have written about the fact that women actually can get more accomplished after menopause and after the whole focus on men and having children has receded a bit. Now, I went through menopause very close to you. I was about 44. I had a couple of hot flashes that were inhuman, but not many. But what happened to me was very much on the surface. My hair started breaking off. It couldn't be big or long anymore. My skin dried up to the point where it didn't matter if I was spending $1,000 on a face cream. It wasn't moisturizing. I felt less active. I had been a runner all my life. My joints started hurting. And so I sought remedy in, obviously, what everybody goes to, hormone replacement, although at the time it was relatively new. But you say that you've got a ton of natural remedies that are, that are going to ease the very worst of what menopause represents. Give us a few of those, please.
Well, first, I'd like to say that I do see menopause as kind of like your scorecard on your midlife health. And I also see symptoms as like the canary in the coal mine. I think it's the
Ooh.
body's early warning system saying everything's not right with your world and maybe you need to make some changes. So when we talk about remedies, it's actually a complete reassessment of your physical, emotional, maybe even your spiritual health. Because menopause is a major transition in our lives. We're moving from one role to a completely different role. So the first thing I would say is, what's your stress level like? I find it's very interesting that certainly in the UK, the women who shout the loudest about difficult menopause are the celebrities who have very stressful lives. So
Especially physically stressful. Like, I can tell you from being on QVC HSN for 30 years, your audience does not forgive you for aging. Your
exactly.
audience wants you to stay impossibly young in 5-inch heels, beautiful, able to be up all night partying and look great the next morning. And, here you are and you're 60, 70, and that is not going to happen. So give us a few natural remedies that you found really worked for you.
So getting a handle on your stress, making sure you've got good exercise, really important. So cardiovascular exercise to keep your heart in good health. Make sure that you're doing some stretching to help with those achy bones, and also weight bearing, because we are at greater risk of osteoporosis after menopause. So we need to be doing something to put some impact through the bones. I swear by ground flaxseed. I have been taking it for the last 15 years. I have it every day and I absolutely
I'm
swear by
writing
it.
this down.
So ground flaxseed, like soya, is a very strong plant-based source of natural phytoestrogens, which are thought to mimic the action of estrogen in our bodies. So it's like
Wow.
nature's HRT. So,
Wow.
and the ground flax seeds are the most dense source of it. Soya's
Okay.
great, but ground flax seeds even more. And you need to grind them because otherwise they'll just go straight through you and they'll make you regular but not do much else.
Okay. So that is really a good one. How do you feel about women turning to hormone therapy, HRT?
If they need hormone therapy, I'm all for it. I took hormones because I was told to because of my early menopause diagnosis, but I actually came off them when I reached so-called normal menopause age of 51 because I don't like being on any medication unless I absolutely have to. That's just me. So I didn't need them for symptom relief. I was told to go on them because I had that many less years of estrogen in my body. So that's why I took hormone therapy. But I think the thing about hormone therapy is it can get a woman to a place where she can function. If she's having a really hard time, then hormone therapy can get her to a place where she can function. But the issue is hormone therapy will only deal with certain symptoms. It's only really prescribed for vasomotor symptoms. And sometimes it is a first-line treatment for people at risk of osteoporosis, which is why I was told to have it when I had the early menopause diagnosis.
For me, I had a high energy life. I was always flying. I was always in a studio. And so, number one, for all the flying I did, osteoporosis was right up front as concern. But to tell you the truth, I took hormone replacement for the energy level I was able to maintain. And quite frankly, for vanity. My hair got healthy again. My skin looked better again. My lashes grew longer again. You know, I was in two really youth obsessed industries, television and fashion. And here I was, you know, motoring along in my 50s, my 60s, my 70s. And I felt like I needed a defense. And that was it. Then when I got breast cancer, there is so much debate over, was the breast cancer caused by flooding my system with hormones for too long? And that is split into in the medical community. What is the debate on that in the UK?
We know that HRT is a lot safer than women used to think it was. There was that study done before, and it did scare everybody, and we know that it's a lot safer. But what I always say, and some people find this very contentious, is that we actually don't know what the long-term impacts are of any formulation of hormone therapy, because the formulations keep changing. We all take different types. We all have different lifestyles. So there's so much else going on. We could, be measuring somebody who's taking hormone therapy and drinking lots of alcohol, or they're smoking, or they're having lots of caffeine, So what I would say is we're all sort of guinea pigs in a way. So when people start making claims about the benefits of hormone therapy for future health, I'm very skeptical about that, because I don't think we know. I don't think we will know for another 10, 15 years. How can we say now, there's all sorts of claims that are being made, but how do we know now that it can prevent Alzheimer's? We won't know that for a woman of my age until 20 years hence, when Alzheimer's would be kicking in. So I just don't understand how we can extrapolate this.
I just always feel like you're taking your chances. I've read medical reports that say that, in fact, the report that said, oh my God, you're flooding your system with hormones, you're cancer prone, that they were really taking that report the wrong way, but that's a report that got blasted out there.
Yes.
Then there's a whole series of doctors that believe actually taking hormones is a bulwark against cancer. And I'm just sitting there in the middle as someone who's had breast cancer and would love to be back on hormone therapy again. Who says, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? It is so divided.
Very divided.
The medical
and
community.
It doesn't help women. It doesn't help women. But
No,
I think certainly the view in the UK is that if you have an estrogen positive cancer, and I'm no medical specialist, then you shouldn't really be taking hormone therapy.
Yeah, because
it's
somebody tried to convince me to take them again, and I thought, I've got a stress-related, hormone-based cancer, breast cancer, and I don't know. You can do everything you can to make me forgive hormones and say, I want them back in my life again. And of course I do, but I would be very cautious about getting there. But so let's talk about this. One of my biggest goals in life is being a fabulous older woman, and it takes work. And it's also very isolating because there aren't many of us out there that make that a goal. You are a big proponent of ending ageism. And I will say, honestly, Rachel, if we're going to end ageism, we have to act like we're worth it. I feel like we just go into that notch in our life when we are no longer fertile. And the attitude in the society is, oh, you can't bear children anymore. Get out of the way. Stop taking up space. Be quiet. Be absolutely aware that you are no longer needed or wanted. I mean, I always say to me, it's that quote from Shakespeare, get thee to a nunnery. That's about it. So I refuse to do that. Sounds like you're going to also. How do we break stereotypes about being an older woman?
Oh my goodness, I could write a doctorate thesis on this. It's very, very difficult, but I think it has to start, A, as you said, with self-belief, and B, with noticing our own internalized ageism. Because as I said, when I talked about the dried up old prune, we take on all of these messages. We don't think we can age. We try and hide it.
Oh, totally.
We feel insecure. We lack confidence. Imposter syndrome kicks in around menopause. It's the highest for women in menopause, and I don't see any surprise in that. So we have to catch our own internalized ageism. So if you ever think, oh, I'm too old to do this, or I'm too old to do that, and I can't wear that, and I can't wear this, rubbish. You can be and do and say whatever you want, whenever you want. And it is never too late, and you are never, ever, ever too old. And I think you are the living embodiment of that.
The story for me is I just hung in forever in the fashion industry, and they expect you to be a genius in your 20s, and you carry that forward, and then you disappear by your late 40s. I mean, there's very few. Maybe a fashion house exists, but the individual designer is way gone. And I didn't have my fashion light bulb moment till 60 years old. So I was completely alone. And the interesting thing was, I would have never had my light bulb moment if I hadn't gone through menopause, because the shape menopause gave me afterwards, which was like a meatball on two toothpicks, was exactly why I created a gene for my pudgy middle-aged body with the spare tire around the middle. And millions and millions of women resonated towards that. So it was actually, for me, the embrace of being middle-aged and beyond that created a whole new life for me, and a whole new financial life for me as well, and gave me the freedom to do the podcast I'm doing. And I come from a place of total authenticity at 79 years old. I walked away from, yay, I walked away from 30 years of television and just said, I think I'll try something new. Maybe I could be a podcaster. I kind of like that camera on me. And, it has been so rewarding, so expanding, so much fun that I am literally blown away. And I would say to any woman over the age of 55 who said, oh, the corporate world has just completely rejected me. You don't need the corporate world. The internet, honestly, whether it's Instagram or it's TikTok, which I really love and they want to take away, these are fertile grounds for entrepreneurship, where you can be a single practitioner and come up with some great idea and sell it yourself. And so I think, in fact, something that really scares older women, which is, oh, social media, what do I do with that, is actually made for more mature women. You would agree?
Yeah, I would agree, definitely. And
Well,
it allows us to connect with each other. That's the powerful thing. You and I are
yes,
talking to each other. It's
yes,
brilliant, isn't it? And we
I
can
think
make those
totally.
connections.
I think you can really broaden your horizons, but I want to know, what is your feeling? Where do we go? How do we start to break the stereotypes of what older women are and what they're expected to be? I was telling you that we have these horrible Medicare commercials on cable TV in America, and someone comes out and, like, her name is Betty, and she's wearing some house coat out of the 50s and then 1950s, and then she says, "Well, I'm 71 now, and I hate the internet, and I don't want to sign up for Medicare." And I'm thinking, uh, and I'm almost 79, and I look so different from you, but whoever is their PR agency, and I'm sure they spend a lot of money on these commercials, this is what they think of older women: screechy, bitchy, whiny, unfocused. How do we get over these stereotypes?
Well, as I said, we have to believe that we're not that, but then we have to call it out. We have to call it out. It's interesting that Medicare is getting away with this, because I read just literally, I think it was yesterday, LinkedIn had done a very ageist ad, and I haven't seen that ad.
Oh,
They
really?
did a very ageist ad, and it took them ages to do anything about it. But lots of people online got very cross about it, wrote about it, and
Yay.
LinkedIn has now taken them down. So that's the other thing we need to do. We need to call it out. And when we see, an 80-year-old man paired with a 40-year-old woman in a film, we have to call it out. We have to say, this does not make sense. It doesn't stack up, doesn't make sense. It's not based in reality. So please, can we have better representation of women? And can we have images? There's an organization over here, I think it's called Better Aging or something like that, and I think ARP might be doing the same thing, putting together databases of much better pictures of older women, especially. So, for example, if you look for a menopausal picture of a menopausal woman online, you'll get a woman who's like this,
Oh, yeah.
in front of a fan, and my hand is up at my my forehead for anybody who can't see the video. But these are not accurate representations of women like me, and they're not accurate representations of women like you. So we need to call it out, and we need to make these people accountable.
I had to really think about it. And obviously, cancer was a deciding factor. When I started to get back to normal life again, I had a choice, and the choice was, do I want to go on dyeing my hair, which was auburn, or if I really do want to make a break with tele-retail and go into podcasting, and I'm so passionate about defending and promoting women over 50, why not be authentic? But I got to tell you something, Rachel, you pay the price for being authentic. I walk into a Manhattan restaurant, I swear to you, I am the only woman in that restaurant with white hair.
And
And
I
I've
think
asked,
that's so sad. So sad.
it's difficult, I'll tell you that. And I've asked some of my friends, like, they'll say, "Oh my God, Diane, I love your hair." And I said, "Well, why don't you do it?" "I'm not ready for that yet." "Well, you're 73 years old and you're not ready for that yet."
This is where I
Okay.
do my confession. I always have to do my confession because I don't dye my hair. I'm
Wow.
57 years old and I don't dye my hair. And I have a few white strands here at the front, but very little else. And my mum, who's 89, about to turn 90, she still has colour in her hair. So my confession is, and I'm sorry, but I have interviewed two people on my podcast, Rachel Peru and Mia Mojay. They're both in their 50s, and they both became models when they let their natural hair color shine through.
Oh,
And they are
fantastic.
both stunning, and their hair is stunning. And so go check them out. If you were in the UK, they'd be snapping you up. I have absolutely no doubt. You'd
You
be all
know,
over
I
you'd be everywhere.
I I can tell you that the fear of growing old in America, and that all starts with that impossible, impenetrable wall of menopause. Once you walk through that door, you're done. It goes into the philosophy that white hair just makes you impossible to date, impossible to love, impossible to move forward. And, honestly, some of the most productive years of my life have happened since I decided to embrace my age rather than deny it. And, I always say the same thing. You're walking down the street in New York, which is a very unforgiving city, and you'll see an older woman with dyed hair, but at the very back of her head, there's a little bit of male pattern baldness, and that's where you see all the white roots. And the instant thing I think to myself is, I hope you don't think you're kidding anybody. Like, we have got, and it was part of me deciding to go with white hair. We have an engendered ageism in this world that is no longer appropriate to our lifespan. And
No.
I just wonder.
It was never appropriate. I'm sorry. Regardless of
Okay.
lifespan, it was never appropriate.
Well, maybe in cave age it was. If we were
No.
cave women.
Anyway,
But
let me tell you about the whales. Can I tell you about the whales?
now listen, so everybody, so we always have a talk before the podcast begins, and we're talking about ageism, and we're talking about this, and we're talking about that, and then Rachel says, well, I want to talk about whales, and our producer is Irish, so she thinks, you want to talk about Wales, the country? And then my social media manager thinks, you want to talk about whales as wildlife? What does that have to do with menopause? But no, we are drum roll. Da, 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 da. We're going to talk about whales now. What are whales?
So
Please
we
tell me I'm
know for
dying.
sure that there are two creatures in this world who go through menopause: humans and whales.
No.
The jury is out on some other species like elephants and lions. They are doing the research, but they think that they probably do too. Think
Wow.
matriarchal societies here. There's a theme.
Yes.
So anyway, so when whales go through menopause, the male whales, they die off. It is a completely matriarchal society. The female whales go on to be the leaders of their pods. And the pods that are led by the female whales do much better than the pods that are not led by the postmenopausal whales. So I believe, and there's also, there's a lot of research for the grandmother hypothesis, whether or not you are a grandmother or even a mother, the fact that, our society, women evolved to go through menopause so that we could support the younger women bringing the children through, you see. So there's a whole thing of grandmother hypothesis. But going back to the whales, we can say the same thing, that like whales, human females are more valuable to our species, our world, our communities as leaders than as breeders.
Whoa. That is amazing. And
Good, isn't
when
it?
I watch the news
Completely shifts everything.
totally, and I watch the news all the time. And to me, for America, some of the wisest legislators are the older women who have been in our Congress for a long time, have a tremendous amount to say, have kind of said it all. And they can be a little bit cheeky because they're past reproductive age. And so, one thing that we have too is, I think, a much greater fear of aging than the rest of the world. And I wonder what your attitude is, because I certainly know what mine is. There are two major male movie stars now who are both in their 80s. Al Pacino, 83, Robert De Niro, 80. they're both geniuses completely in their own rights. And they both just had a child with a 20-year-old. Not the same 20-year-old. They each had their own 20-year-old, okay? But what would that be for a woman if I said at 80 that I had a 20-year-old boyfriend? I wonder how you feel about the disparity of that in terms of, I mean, let's forget that the world is not fair, but just attitude alone is so patriarchal.
Yeah. It is totally patriarchal. It's like one rule for men and one rule for a woman. It's completely that. But I'm less concerned about the disparity, and I'm more concerned actually the fact that if you have a child when you're in your 80s, that child isn't going to reach 20 with you still alive.
No, of course not.
That's the sad thing. I just don't really understand that.
Well, I think we'd have to ask them, but I don't think that they'd really want to talk about it. The point is, I had a younger boyfriend for years, not that much younger, that's for sure. And I felt like I got all kinds of attitude from everybody about it. And I would never, people always say, oh, you should be with someone 20 years younger. Try being with someone 20 years younger if you're a white-haired older woman, and see how nasty society is towards you. All kinds of assumptions, and go into a restaurant and whispering. And I feel that we need to band together as a voice. It needs to be international. I think that the more I do podcasts, the more I see, if you have a platform to speak, it is an important subject. And so, Rachel, as a final thought, what do you think is most important for us as older women to implement as we move forward into what I like to call our third act, but certainly the next chapter after menopause? It's a deep question, I know.
It's a very deep question. I can't it's only I can give a very long answer. I think stay curious, question everything. Stay curious and question everything, because just because a narrative is out there doesn't mean it's true. We assume that our experience of the world is the way it is, but there are all sorts of places around the world where it's very different for older women. Women experience menopause differently. They're allowed to let their hair change, and people, don't get on their case about it. So I think stay curious, question everything you're told, and believe that your value just goes up and up the older you get. You're not falling off some cliff and going down, It's not like that. We go up, we get better and better as we age. And that's what I want to get across to women, especially because men kind of know that and women don't.
Men know it because they're supported by society with that. And everything you see on television, and it's always the silver-haired fox who's in his 60s with the 35-year-old blonde. I mean, that is just endemic. And so my feeling personally, and we'll close here, I feel one of my favorite sayings is money makes blind men see and deaf men hear. And if there is a way for us as a majority of society, because in America, over 50 is now the majority of citizens. We are a gray nation officially. If we put our money where our mouths are and our minds are, and we buy into certain products, as an older segment of our culture, people will stand up and pay attention. But I think the first thing I would say is, as a child of the 60s and the 70s, we acted like a unified community. We may have been wild, which we were. Definitely, I'm speaking for myself. We may have done things in a new way, but the point is we did them together and we were a force to be reckoned with. Once you get past 50 and you're kind of told and shoved aside, told that you're not really relevant any longer, we seem to take it. So I just say, stand up and know you're worth it. You're worth much more than what society grants you. And if we act as more of a unified community rather than just lost individuals, a million voices is going to be a lot stronger than a million individual voices. So somehow, I think this is our mission, Rachel.
I want women to step forward, not step back.
Yeah, exactly. And I loved having this conversation with you. Who knew menopause could be actually fun to talk about? But it is. I'm going out and buying flaxseed immediately. I'm not even waiting a minute after I get off this podcast. Flaxseed is going into my diet. Thank you so much for helping us break stereotypes that are actually so harmful to us. And we'll look forward. I'm sure you're going to have another book. We'll look forward to that. But in the meantime, Magnificent Midlife is a great read. We'll give everybody all the information. And best of luck, and absolutely stay in touch.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, older is better. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.